Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Oxygen for the Soul. This week's Parsha is Perashat Va'era. And last week's Parsha, Shemot, it ends with Moshe speaking to God, him revealing himself to the Jewish people, finding out about his particular mission, about freeing the Jewish people. God informs him about these three miracles that he's going to take place over there with the rod, the staff, and the hand turning to leprosy, and then the drop of blood. Now, there's this fascinating conversation that goes back and forth between God and Moses. And Moses originally was super concerned about coming out and doing all of this because he was afraid of the impact of him meeting with Paro. Who knows that if Paro would actually be able to let go, because he was a megalomaniac and an egomaniac, and it wasn't ready to let go of his servants. So you have the Parsha beginning as follows. It says, God starts up by saying, God speaks to Moshe, right? And it says, very strange. It says, right? God, the name of God, which represents justice, judgment. And then it says, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, which represents mercy. So God is over here moving himself from a state of justice to mercy. He's annoyed a little bit with Moshe, right? He's not happy with Moshe's response over here. I appeared before Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the name of Shakai, Sha'amar Dai. That is the name of God that represents justice, the boundaries. Ushmi Hashem lo natati lehem, and I did not reveal my name Hashem to them. I made this particular covenant with them. I made my covenant with them. I gave them Canaan, the land which they lived and they traveled to. This is important. I also heard na'akat. I heard the challenges, the pain, the groanings of Bnei Israel. That the Egyptians have enslaved them. And now I am going to remember my covenant with them. Therefore, Emor Bnei Israel, please, I want you to go. Tell the Jewish people, Ani Hashem. I am going to free you from them, from under the burdens, their oppression. And I'm going to rescue you from this hard work. And I'm going to redeem you. I'm going to redeem you with an outstretched hand and all these amazing wonders. These are the three lashonot of Geulah right over here, the three words for redemption. Hotzeti, Hatzalti, Vega'alti. And then over here, it also says, I'm sorry, I'm just getting distracted. I got a couple of messages over here. People are having a hard time for some reason getting into the class. I don't know why that's happening. This class is streamed live. There is no meeting code. It's so strange. Let me see if I could just send this person over here the ability to join. Participants, invite, copy, invitation link. Let's see if this works. Sorry for the pause, everybody. Anyway, okay, so here we go again. Someone must have changed my settings. That's what it is, because I lent someone my Zoom password. Anyway, so we were saying, okay, let's get back. The Parsha continues and tells us that God wants to redeem the Jewish people. 4 different languages, 4 different ways that he was going to save the Jewish people, each one representing a different part of the challenge of being enslaved. They also represent the four exiles that the Jewish people are going to have to go through later, because we believe on some level that these exiles were the punishment, the severity of the punishment in Egypt was not fully accomplished, and therefore there are 4 exiles that are there to finish the brewing, developing process that was supposed to happen in Egypt. Okay, fine. Parsha continues about Moshe, God telling him, I'm going to free the people, you will see. Okay, and then it says, Vayedaber Moshe ken el bnei Israel, and Moses goes ahead and repeats everything he hears from God. V'lo shim'u el Moshe. They were unable to listen to Moses. Mikotzer ruach me'avodah kasha. They were in so much anguish and pain. They were so distraught by the suffering that they were going through, they were unable to hear anything. All these beautiful ideas of being freed, they couldn't hear it. They could not hear it. Okay. God comes back to Moshe. Bo daber el paro. Now it's not enough for you to go ahead and be rejected from the Jewish people. I want you to go now and give my message to Paro. Okay. V'yishlach et bnei Israel. So let my people go. V'daber Moshe lefnei Hashem. And then Moshe goes and says, Hen bnei Israel lo shemul elai. Ech yishma'eni Paro. I need some of the time. How is Paro going to listen to me if the Jewish people, my own people, don't believe me? How is Paro going to listen to me? Right? I need our office of time. I have blocked lips. I'm a stammerer. I can't speak properly. He burnt his lips because of the coal that he put in his mouth. Don't worry about it, God says. Right? I'm going to command Yitzavim b'nei Israel. Moshe el Aaron. Yitzavim el b'nei Israel. Paro melech Mitzrayim lo tzia b'nei Israel. You go with Aaron, and he'll speak for you. That is the end of the first aliyah. Okay. Then it goes through the names of the different shvatim. Okay, that the parsha lists. I want to skip that. On the day that these are all the different Moshe and Aaron come before. Moshe and Aaron come before Paro. Okay, and they say to him, "Hu v'Aaron Moshe, and more Hashem lahem hotziu et bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim." I want you to go ahead and remove all these different people, these different groups that are in Egypt. You have to free my people. Okay, Hem medabrim el Paro el Mitzrayim hotziu bnei Israel. They were speaking to Paro to let the people go. Who Moshe v'Aaron Moshe Mitzrayim. That happened. They spoke. The Torah is recording that Moses and Aaron go ahead and they speak. I need dover elech. I want you to repeat exactly word for word. I'm going to tell them. Okay, here we go. Moshe, no, I don't want to do it. I need a reference of a time. Okay, he doesn't want to bring the message. Your brother's going to be your spokesperson. No problem. I want you to go and tell him all these things. But no, like, do you see what's going on over here? He's telling him to go ahead and do this, but he's going to go ahead and harden his heart, right? He's not going to be able to hear you. I'm going to bring all my signs before the Egyptians. He's not going to listen to you. I want my hand to be exposed over the land of Egypt. I want them to all to know that I am taking them out with a strong hand. They need to know that it was me. It can't be a fluke. There cannot be some other person that's pulling out the Jewish people. It has to be me and me alone. Okay. And then we know that they bring this to Paro. They bring the staff, and the staff they laugh at. Oh, your snake. We could do that also. The tzarat, they're able to reproduce as well. Not impressed by it, even though Moshe's staff eats all the others' snakes. That does not move Paro at all. Okay. Now, Vayasu ken Moshe, B'tziv Hashem Yiram, he lifts up his staff. Vayechet hamayim, he hits the water. Okay, before Paro, and in front of all of his servants. If you have Hu kol hamayim asher b'ya'ar ladam, all of the water in the river, in the Nile, turns to blood. V'hadaga asher b'ya'or, and the fish in the river died, right? V'ash ha'ya'or, and it became dry and putrid. They could not drink the water from the river. There was blood everywhere. But don't worry about the necromancers, the magicians, the practitioners of all kinds of magic were able to reproduce the plague of blood. Okay? And then Chazak le Paro v'lo shama lehem, he did not hear them. He's like, oh, big deal. We could all do this. This is the best part. V'yipen Paro v'yavo al beito. He turned and went to his place. V'lo shat libo gam l'zot. He ignored them. Can you imagine? You have Moses and Aaron coming before Paro saying, listen, I don't want to do all these horrible things to you, but just be mindful that you're not going to have any water to drink. What does Paro do? He goes home, he forgets about them. He ignores it. This is like a bunch of clowns that came to my office. He completely does not pay attention, right? Now, what does that mean he did not pay attention, We already know from the Pasuk that he didn't listen to them. So what does him not paying attention teach us? So Netziv tells us that this verse is telling us that Paro was completely unmoved by the pain of his own people. He didn't care about the suffering. The plague did nothing. It did not move the needle at all. Right? The plague of blood is the only one where the Torah alludes to Paro's indifference to the suffering of the people. Why? Because he was not afflicted by the blood. That's what the Midrash says. He didn't feel the pain. The plague of blood is the only one which did not harm Paro. So he could not experience the pain himself, and therefore it was that plague where he was apathetic and had apathy to the pain of his own people. So we see a very, I would say, stark difference, contrast between Paro's cruel indifference and the reaction of Moshe to the pain of people. We know that Moshe grew up in the home of Paro. He separated from the people. He was unaffected by the slavery, but then nevertheless, what did he do? He went out and he saw the suffering of his brothers. He even persuaded Paro to give him a day of rest. But the Torah tells us, right, V'yigdal Moshe, right? And normally it would be translated as, that he grew, that Moses grew up. But that can't be the case because we already said it earlier. So what does the second V'yigdal Moshe actually mean? So I think that over here, the second V'yigdal Moshe represents the fact that Moshe became someone who became great. There was a certain greatness in him. What was that greatness? Right? What is this particular trait of greatness? It was the ability to be empathetic, right? A gadol is someone who's able to expand his definition of self to include others. When you become other-centric, when you become a grown-up, when you're not thinking about just you're thinking about everybody around you. You're not just selfish. You become selfless. He's not considered someone who becomes a gadol. He's not an individual, but he's part of a greater whole. Right? And through that ability, he becomes a greater person. Paro, what is he control? The Gemara says he's a katan. He's tiny. Why is he tiny? Because he's so narcissistic and selfish. He can only think about himself. As a matter of fact, he brings all 10 plagues onto himself and his people. Because it's only about him. This is the lowest you person can be. Someone who is the definition of a small person is someone who could only think about himself. Now, how do we, as thinking people, avoid the apathy of Paro? How do we become individuals that are able to emulate the empathy of Moshe? Now, I would say that there's a difficulty we all have to empathize with people who are in a difficult situation, especially when you and I are not affected by it. No question about that, right? We're always in a situation where we're struggling to feel the pain of other people. But Moshe was different. He saw the suffering of his people, and he focused his eyes and heart to feel pain for them, right? That's what it is. He looked at their faces to see the pain that they were in, and he focused his heart there, and he was able to notice that pain and feel it for himself. So the first step of feeling empathy is trying to put yourself in that other person's feeling, right? Feel their pain. And then, for example, I would say so much was happening in Israel. There was these hostages were coming home, and the stories they're telling is so painful, but it's been already almost a year and a half. I was hearing these stories. It's not enough to feel bad for those people in pain. You have to go out and do something. There's a story of, Moshe went out to feel the pain of his brother. So he was empathizing, and then he did something to feel the pain. There's a story of the Brisker Rav, who there was a massive fire that broke out in his hometown, and he moved out of his house and slept on a park bench because he wanted to feel what it was like being displaced. We have so many Jews on the West Coast whose homes have burnt down. Are we feeling that pain? Between our brothers and sisters in Israel and what's happening here in America, are we feeling these people's pain? There's a story that was in the Jerusalem Post today that brought me to tears. And that's not so easy to do. It's if anyone wants the link, I'm happy to send it to you. The headline is, "When you're in Gaza, you lose hope." A hostage by the name of Qaid Faharan al-Qadi. That's what he says. I want to read parts of this to you because I think it's powerful, especially because it's coming from an Arab Israeli. He says as follows. Hold on a second. He says as follows. He says, I cried out of happiness and also of pain. This is what he said when he saw the experience of the female hostages coming home earlier this week. He says 5 months passed since he was in Gaza. He is 52-year-old from Rahat. He was rescued from Hamas captivity after being found in a tunnel in Tel Sultan. That's the southern part of Gaza. He's also trying to recover from his past and the pains that he went through. And this past Sunday, he joined with the rest of the country in watching the release of these hostages. And this is what he says, quote, he's like, I'm so happy these girls were released, but I'm in pain for those who are still there. I pray every day that these hostages will be returned. Everything must stop until they come back. Everything. Why does he say that with so much passion? Because he knows what it was like to be in their shoes. Al-Qadi shared the feeling he experienced in captivity. He's like, when you're in Gaza, you lose hope. The moment they took me down to the tunnels, I left my hope above ground. I didn't think I even had a 1% of a chance of returning alive to my family. I'm grateful to everyone, and I thank the security force who worked to get me out of the tunnel. Alongside the pain felt by the hostages themselves, their families, you have no idea the families, what kind of pain they're going through. He said that his children told him that when they would sit down to eat their own meals, they'd wonder, is dad eating right now? How can I eat right now? They went to sleep under their blankets and they were warm. They said they woke up in the night. He's like, is dad sleeping right now? How can I go to sleep? There's no way to describe the pain that the families endure. He says, this is a quote, he says, if politicians could feel even half what the families feel, they would have brought every single person back. And he's probably right. You know, he says, I hope that they were alive. We saw the lists of the people that were coming out. We were celebrating, we're so happy. He goes and he talks about how he's, meeting with the families and giving them hope. But like, how powerful is that? This idea is, I think, echoed in the parasha itself. Moshe could not hear the cry of Paro could not hear the cry of let my people go, because he was so small he could not hear. He was unable to be empathetic with those people. But are we guilty of being like Paro? It's been so long. Do we actually feel the pain of the hostages and their families? Are we able to feel and be empathetic with those people who've lost their homes not too far away? What are we doing about it? How do we break free? The Pasha is a reminder not just about the stories that took place to our ancestors for so long ago. It's a call to action. I want to be a Gadol. I hope you want to be a Gadol too. May we take the lessons of the Pasha, Moshe's greatness, seeing and feeling the pain of his brothers and sisters, and bring that into our worlds. That was a precursor to bringing the Geulah for them. I have a suspicion it's the same precursor that we need to bring the Geulah in our times soon. May we see our hostages returned in the merit of us being able to be empathetic and feeling their pain, doing whatever we can to make this world a bigger place by becoming bigger people, by learning to include the pain and the suffering of those people around us. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for listening.